Hi guys, so today I'm going to be talking to you about what makes a perfect shirt. What you should be looking at when buying a shirt. What's the difference between luxurious and a pretty poorly made shirt? What are the differences to look out for when you're shopping formal dress shirts? So my credentials in this space are that I have founded and I've run my own shirt making business. It's called Hawkins Shepherd, and I've been doing it for around 6 years now. So I've got a lot of experience in this field. I know the manufacturing process. I know everything that goes into making a shirt. Now, what I wanted to do is show you one of my Hawkins Shepherd shirts, just as an example of some luxurious traits in shirts. So let's start with the collar. Now, it needs to be high quality, and what I mean by that, the first thing that I look for is edge stitching. Now, what I mean by edge stitching is that the stitching runs right to the edge of the collar and the cuffs actually as well. For me, it's more luxurious. It's harder to do as a tailor, so therefore it takes longer, more luxurious. A cheaper, quicker method will be quarter edge stitching, which is, you'll see it on most shirts. Basically, the stitching runs quite far, probably a few millimeters from the edge. The most important aspect that I look for a luxurious shirt in the collar is that the collar is non-fused. Now, what I mean by that is both sides of the collar you have fabric. In the middle you have what's called an inner lining. Now, you should be able to pull both sides of the cotton away from the inner lining because it's non-fused, it's quality. Now, a cheaper, quicker method, especially when you're not doing handmade shirts and you're using machines, factory machines, is what they would do is they would fuse the inner lining to the cotton using some kind of glue or adhesive, and it's just quicker to do and it's quicker to run through the machines. What that can have an effect on is the quality of your shirt over time, because when you're washing it like we do with our work shirts, what you'll find is the adhesive can come away from the cotton or the inner lining and it gives a bubbling effect to the collar, and when that happens you might as well throw the shirt away. It just looks tacky. Okay, moving on, let's talk again about stitching. I would say probably the most expensive part of the shirt being made is this part here, and what that is single needle side seam stitching. Now, it's a bit of a tongue twister, I've had to film that a couple of times, but what it is it's single needle rather than a double needle. A cheaper method of manufacturing is just to run the shirt through a double needle and combining these two pieces of fabric, bosh, done. But a much more complicated and a much more luxurious way is to use a single needle where it runs through, I'm not going to be able to show you exactly here, but you know, it gets turned over, the single needle comes back through, and it's an absolutely beautiful finish to the side. So look out for that. You should see one single stitch on the side. Moving on, we have a split yoke. The yoke is the back portion, is the back part of the shirt that sits over the shoulders. Now, a split yoke means that there's two pieces of fabric that lay over your shoulders. And it just fits better on your shoulders, and therefore actually the shirt kind of flows better and it should fit better if you have a split yoke. It can be slightly different if you have a pattern shirt, because then it becomes a bit more of a design aspect. I quite like my shirts to have a non-split yoke when it's a checked shirt or a striped shirt, because I prefer the pattern to run singular all the way down the back. Sometimes you'll find a lower quality shirt, even if it does have a split yoke, the patterns do not match up. Whereas if you have a look at these shirts, the patterns always match up around the shoulders. The next thing to look for is the front placket. Now, I love my front placket to be absolutely clean, so no stitching. It's just luxurious. It's much better finish to a dress shirt. So the next thing you need to look for is cleanly sewn buttonholes. They need to look class, luxurious. Always, always, always go for mother of pearl buttons. What is the point in spending money on a shirt where the fabric is amazing, the build quality is amazing, the tailoring is amazing, yet you finish it with plastic buttons? No, mother of pearl buttons always. Not only that, make sure that your shirt has spare mother of pearl buttons. A quality aspect of the buttons again would be that they're tightly sewn, because these can obviously wear over time with multiple washes, so you want to make sure that they're tightly sewn to your shirt. But if they do fall off, you need to have spare mother of pearl buttons. Okay, now the top button should always be vertically sewn, the buttonhole, and every button after that going down the shirt should be vertical, except for the last buttonhole. Again, that needs to be vertical. The reason for that is because we move a lot. We need a bit of movement around the hips. We're walking, we're running, for buses, for tubes. We're sitting down, we're sitting up at work. So we're always on the move. So this last buttonhole just gives us that little bit extra movement in the fabric where we need it. So that's why you'll see the last buttonhole of good quality shirts to be sewn vertical. You can also have a different colour sewing, a different colour thread, sorry, in your last buttonhole. That's not really a trait of a luxury shirt, it's just more of a design aspect if you really like it yourself. Talking about movement in a shirt, look for the gusset. The gusset is this triangular shape fabric at the bottom area of the shirt. Now what that gives again is it just gives extra stitching, extra strength to that area of movement. It also flows better and it makes the shirt flow out slightly where we may need more space. While we're down the lower end of the shirt, always look out for the extra length. Now what I said about being at work, you're sitting down, you're sitting up, the worst thing is having a shirt that's too short and it rides, and you end up at the end of the day having a shirt that is untucked more so than it is tucked in. It's just very sloppy and it's just not a good look, not a professional look. Okay, let's go back to the front placket here. You know, shirts these days sometimes are over engineered, so what you'll see is a different fabric on the front placket. Not for me, the same fabric through and through. Talking about the cotton and talking about the fabric, it needs to be super high quality. I would say for me, entry level cotton should be twin 100s. Now look out for that. It is a high quality shirt. The higher you go up in your yarn count, so 140, 160, 200, 260, etc., then the finer the cotton is going to be, and more often the softer the cotton will be. Now the lower it goes, the thicker the cotton's going to be, and therefore the lower quality. It's a cheaper cotton. So if you go for twin 60s, twin 40s, they're considered to be quite a cheap cotton. So moving on to the sleeves, I've got a pattern shirt here. Now it's super important to make sure that the shoulders line up pattern wise with the arms. Okay, so you should see the pattern flow from the shoulders, the yoke area, all the way down to the cuffs. Talking about the cuffs, again, what we're looking for is edge stitching and non-fused linings. Again, remember, you can pull both sides of the cotton out away from the inner lining. I also look for a smaller button on this placket here, and the smaller button just gives a more of a luxurious appeal. Okay, I love to have a double button cuff personally, and also what I look for is if I've got a cut, sort of a sharp cut in the collar, I would also look for the same in the cuff. If I've got a rounded collar, I personally like to have rounded cuffs as well to match. Moving back to the collar, I forgot to mention one thing that's extremely important as well is that you have removable collar stays. Some shirts sew them in It's not great because when you're washing them, they become damaged. When you're ironing the shirt, you don't want to be ironing over plastic because it just makes the cotton indented, shiny. It's not good. Removable collar stays, make sure you remove them when you're washing, when you're ironing, and make sure you always place them back before you wear your shirt. That's a few things to look for when you're buying a luxury shirt, and a few things to look for when you're buying a shirt in general. So hopefully this video has been informative to you, and yeah, thank you so much for watching again, and drop back soon. I'm going to have a lot more videos for you. Alright, see you guys, bye.